Mrs. Miss Mate. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, because it's got a Y and an E at the end. And Mr. Polela. Now, the first question is with regard to the issue of GCIS. I just want to find out as to whether as RAF, you used GCIS for both functions, which is the creative work and also buying of media space. Was it for both functions?
Thanks for the question, Chair. So initially, on the first term of the MOU, we were just using GCIS solely for media buying. And then when the 3-year contract that we had with the creative agency lapsed, we were then alerted that GCIS had already gone on a competitive bid process wherein they had a panel of agencies that ranged from creative agencies, media and PR agencies, and activations. So that MOU that we initially had with them was then amended to then increase the scope of work that we will do with GCIS beyond just solely media buying. I hope that clarifies.
Yeah, no, that's clear. Thank you very much. Now, secondly, the decision of not continuing with GCIS, according to your knowledge, was it taken in an executive management meeting, or it was just the decision of the CEO alone?
Honorable Member, I will not know that because, like I indicated, we do presentations and submission to our bid adjudication committee, and then they take that forward to the CEO. In terms of what platform and which type of an environment, I will not know. We just see BAC resolutions that comes back with responses of that which was submitted at the BAC committees. Thank you.
Okay. Has there been any concern raised by the board, maybe regarding that decision, according to your knowledge?
No, not according to my knowledge.
All right. Now, coming to the question that was raised earlier by Honorable Beasley about the issue of value for money and the whole procurement processes for both contracts. There's an amount of, 500 million. Okay, let's talk about media mix, for an example. There's 500 million rands set aside for 5 years for that particular project. Meaning roughly 100 million it's set aside for a year. Now there's a tender process. Service providers are invited to bid. Now they submit their tenders at different price levels. Maybe somebody says, no, I can do the job at 90 million rands. Somebody says I can do it at 80 million rand. Somebody says I can do it at 70. Somebody says at 60 million rand. Then there's this media mix that says I can do the work at 5 million rands, which is just 5% of the annual budgeted amount. Because you've got 500 million for 5 years, which means it's 100 million per year, as per your estimation. I know that Mr. Polela indicated that, in fact, even that estimation of 100 million rand was not, at that time, it was correct, because I think you were comparing to the GCIS, but practically, currently, it's not the correct amount. In fact, it should be more than 100 million rands. However, because at that time the budget was 100 million rand per year, but media mix says we can do the job at only 5 million rands. I know that I think one of the things that when you do the the procurement processes, one of the things that you look at the cheaper, to say which bidder is cheaper. But that is not the only thing that you look at. There are quite a number of things that you have to look at for. But the issue of being cheap, because we want to be cost effective, we want to save money and all that. But didn't you, as an institution, I think, realize that this is too good to be true? That in your own estimation, that you said, your own estimation says this job can be done at 100 million rand a year. But somebody says, no, I can actually do it only at 5 million rand a year. And you appoint this person. Didn't you realize that this is too good to be true?
Honorable Member, can you kindly clarify with regards to the figure 5 million, where in the document are you making reference from in terms of the 5 million?
Yeah, I think it's part of the documents that we received from the Department of Transport. I cannot at this moment specifically refer you to the exact page, Chair.
I am going to help. So when so you're asking about which contract are you asking about?
Media Mix.
Media Mix 360. So the bidders, when the evaluations were being done, I think each of them had to say what their own fees are going to be. Right? So, and Media Mix proposal for the year on an annualized basis, let me put it like that, on an annualized basis, vis-a-vis the 100 million expected expenditure, right, was about 5 million. That's the long and the short of it. So for ease of reference, it's their management fee. That's the 5 million that it's just over 5 million rand that Honorable Skhosana is referring to. I don't know if that's helpful.
To a certain extent it is, but remember, in terms of pricing, evaluation and all that, it's not something that me or Mr. Pulela can answer, because that is handled by the SCM colleagues when they are doing the bid evaluation. So as a business unit, you will give them, because they always prefer to be given scenarios for them to be able to then compare apples with apples. So I don't want to get into the technicalities of that, because that is not the space that I play in, and you can request for further information with regards to that on the pricing. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Yeah, but it's a bit strange for me that if I'm given a responsibility to oversee a certain project, even if I don't deal with the SCM processes, but I have to be informed about those particular processes. Say I am I don't know what example can I give, but I'm saying if I'm in charge of a certain project, being on as the business leader, like you are indicating, but the fact that I've got a responsibility to play oversight on risk, I should be aware to say this service provider was appointed at which amount versus the budget. I should be inquisitive to say, but then why was this one when there were other people who had maybe scored, even though they scored higher? But obviously, it means they were reasonable in terms of the budgeted amount. For a person who's looking at the budgeted amount and their pricing, should be saying, but this person, the pricing and what we have budgeted, it means this person has got a full understanding of what is required. Unlike this one who's just say, I can do this thing for 5 million rand, when we all know that the estimation of that work is at 100 million. It's just strange for me. Don't you think it's strange that at your positions you were not aware, and you are just putting all that responsibility to SCM? You are just overseeing the project. You don't care as to which company is being appointed at what price and stuff like that. Don't you think it's strange?
Okay, I've got 2 responses with regards to that. Firstly, in terms of the procurement process of the RAF, there is designated roles because they are wanting to protect the integrity of the tender bid process. So as business, when we go into the process, there is what is called a bid specification committee. That committee is comprised of different people. It will be the business unit that is requesting the service, people from legal, people from compliance, and there will be people from risk, and then that comprise the guys will sit around the table and make a specification for a tender bid. Once that process is done, handed over, for instance, I was the BSc chair of this tender bid. I will not even be able to tell you who are sitting in that committee as a bid evaluation committee. So at that point in time, in terms of understanding what the pricing models and everything else, it was going to compromise the process. So from a BSc, you put together a specification, you tell the business case in terms of what value, what service you are looking for, and then you make sure that when you sit in that committee, you create a specification that is so watertight that first of all, there is no non-response in the market, because you need the services and you don't want to waste the little capacity that we have as SCM going back and forth. Second of all, you tell the people that this is the price budget in terms of what finance is allocated to us as a business unit. That determines the value envisaged to be spent on a particular contract. So once you've handed over that process, the next thing that you will see is a communication from contract management that will say to you as a business unit head or as a business user, this is the service provider that was awarded. So I don't think it's fair to be saying what you're saying, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. My last question, I'm going to leave other questions because I think most of my questions are on procurement processes. But based on the answer that was given now, I will leave other questions. But just one question for Mr. Polela, because I think you said when Honorable Beasley asked whether there's value for money, and then you said, indeed, there is value for money. But from the answer that Honorable Mate just given, the fact that you are not mainly involved with figures as far as this project is concerned, I think your satisfaction, I assume from where I'm sitting, is about the effectiveness. You are aware that these service providers are effective. They do deliver on what they promise to do. But as to whether there's value for money, I don't think you can be able to answer that based on the answer that was just given by Ms. Patti, because a value for money, it says we must get the best service at a reasonable price. You see, it's the best service on one part, but the price should be reasonable. But if somebody gives us the best service, but you don't know at what cost is that best service, you can't necessarily say there is value for money. Because the service, yes, we do receive it, you can see the service is best, but if that service is too expensive for us, you can't just say there's value for money. Because value for money, you must compare the service and the cost of that service. So I think from the answer that Ms. Mate gave, I realize that you are not necessarily, the two of you, involved on the issue of figures, but what you know is the effectiveness as to whether are these service providers effective or not. And from where you are sitting and from the answer that you gave, I think you are satisfied that they are effective. But I don't think you can confidently say there is value for money. When somebody said, I can do this work at 5 million rand per year, ended up doing it at more than 100 million. No, we know that in any project there would be sometimes environments and stuff like that because of the material conditions. But to move from 5 million to more than 100 million, when there are other bidders who said, we can do the job at 90 million rands, we can do the job at 80 million rands, we can do the job at 70 million rand. But the one who said they can do it at 5 million rand, end up doing it at more than 100 million rands. I don't think you can confidently say there's value for money. That's my last question, Chair. Thanks.
I do get your submission, my lord. Let me go back to confirm what Ms. Marty has said, that indeed supply chain does market analysis on the things that we do purchase. That's where we get our information from, to say there's value for money in this. But you're right in saying, in the deliverance of the product, you must remember that the work that we do is visual. I can see. So I agree with you that I do see the value. But whether there's value for money is decided by the GCIS. Whenever we buy something like the stuff that we were talking about, it goes to, it does go to supply chain to say, are these garments in terms of the apparel, is there value for money in paying for this? I base my judgment, you are correct, on the outcome.
No, thanks, Chair.